Hey folks, welcome back to the channel, High Skier Reviews. I'm Lou Thomas. Hey, I wanted to say thank you very much for joining me again. So kind of a little bit of a different topic, but what I want to talk to you today about is about drones basically. I wanted to kind of show you some of the drones that I use for making my videos as far as my automotive reviews and that kind of stuff. And sometimes I get a lot of questions as far as which drone is good for you or which drone is the best one for you to buy. So, as you may know, there's many drones out there. The ones that really dominate the market, of course, is DJI, which is what these two here. And then another company, there's a few other companies, but another big dominant as far as personal use or kind of like, I guess you'd call commercial use, would be Skydio. So we're going to take a look at the three drones that I have. A couple of them are a little bit last year's, or I guess last model technology, but I'm going to be telling you the stats on them. And if I don't know the stats, I'll just tell you about the latest models, like the new version. But they both look very similar as far as the DJI Air 2 and the 2S, and then the Skydio 2, and then the Skydio 2 Plus. So let's get right into it, and let's start with the minis. All right, so obviously the biggest company in the game of drones is going to be DJI. DJI is a China-based company, so there are some issues in some states as far as using Chinese drones, but they are by far pretty much the leader in drone sales as far as kind of a general use, hobbyist type drones. So we're going to start with the Mini series, okay? So the one that I have is actually the Mini 3 Pro. This is like the top of the line as far as the smaller drones go. There's also one called the Mini 3. I'll kind of tell you a little bit about that as well and give you some of the differences. So, as far as what drone is going to be right for you, if you're traveling a lot and you want a drone just to take traveling with you on trips, you can't beat the Minis. I mean, the Mini 3 Pro and the Mini, these drones have a unique feature in their weight. And basically, they're under 250 grams. The reason for that is once you get under that 250 grams, basically you don't need to register the drone. So it gets by a lot of kind of some of the legal stuff that people are always kind of worried about. So you can fly this drone pretty much unregistered, depending on what country you fly it in, of course. So anyway, this is the DJI Mini 3 Pro. This, right off the bat, is one of my favorite drones I've ever had. So as you can see, it's a very small drone. Like I said, it weighs under 250 grams. It weighs 249 grams, actually, which puts it as far as that legal limit. Basically, the way the drone works is you just kind of open it up here, flip this one here down, open this one up here, and then flip this one up, and boom, now the drone is basically in its flying configuration. As far as the battery in it, it has a little battery here. This battery is very light, just pops right in here. So it just slides right in here. There are some different batteries you can get for it. As far as the Mini 3 Pro, you can get up to about 47 minutes of flight time if you get the extended battery. This one isn't the extended battery, so I'm probably going to average in the mid 30-minute flight time, which is still pretty impressive. On the Mini 3, which is the model below the Pro, you're actually going to get about 51 minutes of flight time, and I think that's just because of the slightly less sensors and all that kind of stuff that it has to use. So some handy things about the Mini 3 drones is, one thing, you can do vertical shooting. So what that does is the gimbal here actually rotates around, and you'd use that for like Instagram, that kind of stuff, if you want to use it. So that's kind of a cool feature, so it kind of helps you as far as the editing, all that kind of stuff. As far as the camera capabilities on this drone, both of the Mini 3 Pro and the regular Mini 3 are going to be about 48 megapixels. Aperture is about 1.7. It's going to shoot, both of them are going to shoot in 4K, so that's pretty nice. As far as the kind of like processor, and this will be kind of the CMOS, which is the complementary metal oxide processing. What that basically means is it converts photons into electrons for making digital photographs, and that's basically what creates your images. So the higher the better, basically, is the way that works. Anyway, both of this one, the Mini 3, and this one, the Mini 3 Pro, 1.3 CMOS, which is pretty darn good. I mean, as far as your picture quality, it's going to look fantastic, right? Pretty much the highest TVs that everyone has currently is 4K. There are some 8K ones coming out, but not many people have that. 4K is ample for pretty much everything you're going to do. Some other neat things as far as the Mini 3 and the Mini 3 Pro is basically the speed on these things. They're pretty quick little drones, really. I mean, the Mini 3 Pro, which is this one, like I said, it's going to be about 36 miles per hour top speed. That's flying forward. kind of with no wind. The Mini 3 is going to do 35 miles per hour. Now, when you do some of the active tracking and some of the other kind of stuff, it's going to slow them down, obviously, but that's in ideal conditions flying forward. As far as range goes, this one here, the Mini 3 Pro, is going to give you about 12 kilometers range. So what would 12 kilometers be? That's like 6.5 miles or almost 7 miles of range, which is really impressive. The Mini 3 is just slightly less than that. It's going to be about 6.2 mile range or 10 kilometers, somewhere around there. So a little bit less range, but that range is enough definitely to get you into trouble. Because remember, when you fly a drone, you're supposed to be able to maintain a line of sight with it or be able to see what it's doing basically in the air. So that's basically as far as the features on the Mini 3 and the Mini 3 Pro. Some of the ways you can kind of tell the difference on them are basically these sensors here, okay? So there's some sensors up here, sensors down here, and I mean there's kind of some little sensors all over the place, really, in the back here as well. So as far as collision avoidance type stuff, so the Mini 3, which is the model below this one, like I said, that one's obstacle avoidance is basically just downward, to tell you the truth. That's pretty much kind of what you get with it. As far as the Mini 3 Pro, this one here is pretty impressive as far as its collision avoidance systems. Has basically a tri-system. So it has the forward, it has the back, and then it has the down. So it doesn't have side to side, but what it's going to do basically is going to, you know, as long as you're in front of it, usually it'll avoid most of the objects it's going to run into. It's when you do the side flying, which you can get into trouble with this one. But anyway, if you take care, you should be pretty much okay with it. Just try to avoid kind of the sideways flying, so you're doing active track, that kind of stuff. But all in all, not too bad for such a small drone. So that pretty much takes care of our Mini and our Mini 3 Pro. So let's talk about, actually let's talk about the Air 2, and then we'll talk about the A2S as well, A2S. Alrighty, so our next drone we have here, this one is going to be called the Air 2, another DJI product. So as you can see, it's quite a bit bigger. I'll actually open it up so you can take a look at it. Weight-wise, it's quite a lot heavier as well. So this one's called the Air 2. It's kind of an older model. It's actually only a couple of years old, really. I think 2020 is when it came out, but it's already been replaced by the Air 2S. I don't have the Air 2S because this is a good drone and I didn't really want to get rid of it. But anyway, I may do eventually. So anyway, basically they're both exactly the same kind of looking drones. The difference is it kind of has those little eyeballs hanging up above it, kind of like the Mini Pro has as well. So anyway, the Air 2, basically you can't really get anymore. You have to get the Air 2S when you go to DJI's website. This drone here, I consider more of kind of a, it's kind of like a workhorse drone, really. It's quite a bit heavier. The Air 2S is going to weigh right under 600 grams, around 595 grams, which is pretty heavy. But there are some advantages to having that weight in this drone. And one of those would be just on the smoothness that it flies with. It's a very smooth flying drone, especially in windy conditions. It's really nice as far as actual flight characteristics. Flies really nicely. So, and that's the Air 2S and the Air 2. Speaking of which, you can still get the Air 2. You can find them online in some places, or pick one up on like you know, eBay or Amazon or some of the used markets as well. You can find these. As far as the flight time, I'm going to actually tell you mostly about the Air 2S. I'm just going to be holding this one just so you kind of know what it looks like. Actually, let's go back to another little thing real quick, and that's the size difference. So here's the Air 2 and the Air 2S, and then here would be the Mini. So as you can see, there's quite a bit of a size difference as far as portability. And like I said, that's why I like the Mini as far as traveling. But if I'm going to do some kind of production work, I'd use this one here, the Air 2S. So as far as the battery goes, this one pretty much clips off from the top, slides out. Pretty chunky battery, and just clips into the top like so. As far as flight time goes on the Air 2S, you're going to get about a 31-minute flight time, which is a little bit less than the older Air 2. And that's the same thing probably because of some of the sensors and all that kind of stuff. As far as the vertical shooting, these ones don't do that. So that Instagram shooting where the gimbal adjusts the camera straight up, it doesn't do that on there. So you have to do that in some of the post editing. As far as some of the camera issues or some of the camera deals, it's kind of weird. On the Air 2 was a 48 megapixel camera. On the Air 2S, it's a 20 megapixel. So that's kind of weird. I don't know why they made that change. But anyway, that's fine. It's ample. It's good enough for what you're going to use it for. Aperture 2.8 on both the Air 2S and the Air 2, which is pretty good. So as far as what your aperture does, is that's the amount of light that's going to be let into the camera, basically. The higher the aperture, the better the camera is going to operate in bright light. The lower the aperture, the better it operates in night light. This one here works amazingly well in low light. It's actually kind of shocking. These ones here also work really well in low light, so they're really actually good drones for both bright and dark light. You can put filters on them, and a lot of people use different kinds of filters to filter out some of the light. Anyway, the Air 2S is 5.4K as far as the resolution, which is more than enough than I think you'd ever need really for anything. As far as range goes, that was a big difference in the Air 2 to the Air 2S. So the Air 2, this one here, would give you about 6.2 mile range, and then they increased it on the Air 2S to right around, well, a little bit under 7 mile range, probably like 6.8, somewhere around there. It's actually a pretty good difference, and just kind of the computer systems they use within them, the ability to control the Air 2S, in my opinion, is a lot better than the Air 2, but they're still really good. Top speed, this is a fast drone. These are fast drones. The Air 2, Air 2S is going to do about 42.5 miles per hour. That's moving. That is a fast drone as far as straight ahead flight. And like I said, because of that weight with it, it really cuts through the wind really well. Where the Mini does have a little bit of an issue with the wind. However, the Mini Pro has actually taken it up to another level as well. It's actually pretty darn good in the wind, but definitely not as good as the Air 2S is going to be. So if you want a real stable platform, kind of a heavier drone, one that is going to require you to register it because of the weight, because remember this is almost 600 grams, then you're going to be looking probably the Air 2 or the Air 2S currently is the one you're going to be able to purchase. So there's a couple of the DJIs, and now let's go into the Skydio. Alrighty, so our next drone, this one is called the Skydio. So like I said, this is an American company, which is kind of cool. So you're supporting jobs in the United States, right, and all that kind of stuff. So it's called the Skydio 2. Now the upgrade to this one is called the Skydio 2 Plus. The main difference in the Skydio 2 Plus is it has these little antennas that kind of pop up in the back, and that increases the range as far as the transmission range for the drone. That is one of the shortcomings of the Skydio drone. So anyway, let's talk about this one. So like I said, this one's called the Skydio 2. Really cool drone. This is just like a little gimbal protector just to protect the gimbal. You just remove that before flight. Let's put that here. So as far as this drone, this is a chunk, right? This drone is a heavy drone. This one weighs around 800 grams, about 1.8 pounds, somewhere around there with the battery attached. So it's a heavy drone. Now speaking of the battery, it's kind of a unique design that Skydio does. This battery is actually held on magnetically. So it basically just pops off, and then it just clips on like that. Now, at first I was kind of worried about that. I thought, battery's holding a drone on while it's flying around, you know, like a mile away, 2 miles away from you. That could be kind of interesting. Never had an issue. Actually, one of these, unfortunately, I did crash. And when I crashed it, the battery stayed on. It basically hit a tree is what I did to it. And it wasn't really the drone's fault. I turned some stuff off and was trying some crazy stuff. And it actually didn't hit a tree. It was a very small wire. It was avoiding the tree and then hit this really small wire off a transmission line and brought the drone down. But anyway, when it did crash, didn't really do too much to it. And the battery did stay on. So this battery securement method actually works really well. So some of the things, I'm going to talk about the Skydio 2 for the same reason, the 2 Plus. The reason for that is you can't get the Skydio 2 anymore. So this is a little bit older technology. Like I said, it's only a couple of years old, to tell you the truth, which is kind of crazy how fast things change. But that is the difference, is the antennas. So as far as the Skydio 2, this drone is going to have about a 27-minute flight time. So like I said, it's a big drone, and because of that, the flight time is reduced. So as far as size goes, so here's the Skydio. Here's the Air 2, so you can see that difference there. And then the next difference is going to be the Mini. So there's a huge difference as far as the Mini compared to both of them, right? So now what I use this drone for is its active tracking capabilities, or basically following you when you're doing some kind of action shots. This drone is pretty much unbeatable at how good it is at following you in its accident avoidance or collision avoidance systems. The reason for that is this drone actually uses 6 cameras on it as far as for collision avoidance. So there's one here, there's one here, there's one here. If you flip the drone over, there's one here, there's one here, and there's another one here. So those batteries are giving this drone 360-degree visibility as far as obstacle avoidance, which is just unbelievable. It looks everywhere, all around it, in front, backwards, up, down. It's almost impossible to crash this drone. However, like I said, I did find that if you have a very small wire coming off a transmission line, be careful. So do kind of watch out for that. And I was doing some pretty high speed stuff with it when it hit that. So I don't blame the drone. It was pilot error. I just wasn't paying attention to my surroundings that well. So anyway, this drone, as far as obstacle avoidance, like if you're in your Jeep and you want to videotape yourself going down the trail, this is the drone to have. You're on a mountain bike, dirt bike, all that kind of stuff, this is the drone to have. As far as speed, it's going to go around 36 miles per hour. And because of the weight of this drone, it almost like it doesn't really get affected that much by wind as far as light winds go. So man, you can book with this thing in some pretty crazy conditions as well. And it's going to be nice, stable flight. As far as the stability in flight, however, when it comes to the actual camera doing kind of some slow speed, maybe cinematic type stuff, the Air 2S is going to be hard to beat. It's just heavy, but it flies really smoothly as far as the inputs and controls is real smooth. The minis are pretty darn good as well. Not quite as smooth, I don't believe, as the Air 2S, but pretty darn good. As far as the Skydio, when you fly it with a controller, I don't believe it's as smooth as the DJI ones are. But as far as motion tracking, like if you're doing action type stuff where you want this drone to follow you, it's unbelievable what you can do with this Skydio. Okay, so this is the one to go with as far as if you want to actually active track and follow you doing some really cool stuff. As far as the camera goes, that would be maybe the one limiting thing on the Skydio, is the camera isn't quite where the other ones are. Don't get me wrong, it's still a great camera. It's going to produce really beautiful results, but for the real finicky type folks that are the one like the best camera performance, the Skydio is a little bit behind. So as far as the CMOS, it's going to be about a 0.3 CMOS as far as the processing speed, basically. I said that metal oxide processing. As far as the camera megapixels, it's going to be 12 megapixels. The aperture is going to be real good as well, just as good as the Air's. It's about 2.8 as far as aperture. Also records in 4K, so you get that 4K video capability as well. So as far as vertical shooting for Instagram and that kind of stuff, it doesn't do that. It doesn't do the Instagram type shots and stuff like that. But like I said, if you're wanting a drone that does some pretty awesome stuff as far as following you, watch some videos as people using this as far as the Skydio tracking them. So basically that's the Skydio 2 Plus and the 2 Plus. So let's talk about the controllers real quick, and we'll also get into the price of these drones. All right, so let's talk about some of the controllers. So there's some pretty cool controllers out there, and there's some controls that aren't that great. So as far as the DJI goes, this controller here is called the DJI RC. This is an awesome controller in my opinion. It feels real good. These little kind of controller things here, these store actually in the back here. You just unscrew them, so it's nice and flat when you store it in your backpack or whatever suitcase or whatever you're going to be using. Has a built-in screen. Let me just turn it on real quick so you can kind of see. So it has this nice display here. So it's a pretty darn good size. I'd say it's the size of like probably like a, iPhone 13, 14, somewhere around there. Real crisp picture. Actually works really good in bright light and all that kind of stuff. I haven't had any issues at all with it. Has a few different buttons that do different things. I'm not going to go into that because you can watch some other videos on that. But like I said, just real nice controller. Nice smooth feeling. Has kind of the trigger buttons up here, gimbal controls, F buttons where you can program it to do different things. So just a really nice controller, really nice visibility and all that kind of stuff. So I really do like this controller a lot. You can buy these individually as well. They're a little bit spendy, but just go on DJI's website, you can find these. So that's going to be the DJI RC controller. The next one is going to be kind of like what I'd consider the standard controller that comes with the DJI drones. So this one's called the RC-N1 controller. It's basically a simple controller, about the same size, actually a little bit smaller than the DJI RC. Obviously, it doesn't have the screen on it. It has a similar configuration, return home button, power off. This one here kind of controls the speed as far as cinematic, like a tripod mode, normal mode, sport mode. These little gimbal sticks, these actually store underneath here as well. And then up here, let's see, it has one kind of gimbal control button. And then let's see, it has a function button here, a camera button, and then start stop type button up here. So add a controller. As far as attaching your cell phone to it, you'd basically slide this section out here. The cell phone will clip right in here and it'll hold it in. Then you have to attach a cable into the controller itself to your cell phone. Those are all included as far as with some of the kits and stuff. So that's going to be the DJI controller. So now we're going to get to the Skydio 2 controller. So this is the controller here. Now it's a pretty basic looking controller, and if you've been involved in the world of drones, there's another one called the Parrot. It's the exact same controller, just has a different logo on it. So this is the controller that's going to come with your Skydio 2, or you can get with your Skydio 2. Actually, you can buy a configuration where it doesn't include any controller. You just run your cell phone, and working this drone with your cell phone only, I don't really like it too much. I mean, you can do it, but it's not my favorite way to operate the drone. So basically, this one opens up here. You'll attach your cell phone right here. It'll just kind of clip in. And then same thing, a cable will go in to the back of the controller to control it. As far as controls go, you've got your return home button, some different kind of function things here. This one's kind of a zoom button. You've got some trigger buttons, all that kind of stuff, and then kind of a high speed button as well. So that's going to be the controller. As far as the Skydio 2, it's shaped just like a normal video game controller. So I mean, it's a decent controller. It's not going to win anything as far as the kind of slick, cool look department, but that's the controller for the Skydio 2. But there's one other controller I want to show you real quick for the Skydio 2. All right, so this little controller I want to show you, this is with the Skydio, okay, the Skydio 2 Plus. This is called the Beacon controller. Now this thing is awesome. This is a device, basically when I take this drone out, I hardly ever take the controller with me. I just don't really use it for that kind of stuff because I'm doing more of action type footage, and I don't want to have to mess with this controller. And this is where this little guy, the Beacon, comes into play. So basically you're going to link you're going to pair your phone up to the drone so you can see what it's doing basically, and then you're going to pair this Beacon controller up to the drone as well. Now with this thing, it has like a wand feature where you can kind of wave it around, but the other thing it has is it has some controls on it as far as how far away you want the drone to be, how close you want the drone to be, how high you want it to be, and you can do these different types of orbit patterns, like if you want it to go in front of you, if you're in a vehicle, if you want to go maybe to the side of you a little bit, or all the way to the very side of you, behind you. So it has all these different quadrants that you can basically maneuver the drone in, and the drone will stay in those positions as it's following you around, and it's really awesome. It is a really cool feature, like I said, for as far as following you. It also uses this beacon as basically a signal source where the drone picks up where this beacon is. These ones here use like a visual system where they lock in on the visual target basically, and they use a visual reference, like they try to basically keep an eye on that subject that is going. This one here uses a visual system, and it uses a GPS system from the beacon basically, so it's kind of tracking this beacon remotely, which is awesome because it just finds it everywhere it goes. So if you do get this drone, make sure you get this beacon. This is kind of the key to having a good time with a Skydio drone. So with that said, let's talk about the price. All right guys, so let's talk about the price on these drones. So these are all pretty good end drones, right? They're pretty high end drones, or they're not amateur like cheap drones that you just buy at your local big box store for like $40. So there's going to be some cost involved with them, but the cost, I mean, they're unbelievable products. They really are good. So let's talk about the price real quick. So we're going to start with the Mini 3. So remember, the Mini 3 is the one that is the model just under the Mini 3 Pro. So if you buy the Mini 3 with the RCN1 controller, which is basically this one here, that's the one without the screen, where you attach your phone to it. Okay, that one's going to be about $470 for the controller and the drone and a battery, so you can fly it right out the bat. If you buy a package called the Fly More package, that's going to be about $660. That's going to include 2 more batteries, some other stuff like propellers, that kind of stuff. So you'll have 3 batteries total, which just gives you a lot more opportunity to fly your drone when you take it out on locations or on vacation, that kind of stuff. So that's going to be about $660 for this controller with the Mini 3 drone. Now, if you upgrade your Mini 3 drone when you purchase it and you want to go to the DJI RC, which I recommend. The reason I like this one so much is it's just so easy to use, right? You just take the drone out, boom, hit the button a couple times, hit the button a couple times, everything starts up, everything links up. Once you get the satellite signal, boom, you're off and flying. And that literally takes seconds to get that going. It avoids having to attach your camera to it. So like I said, remember you got to attach your phone, as far as in this little slide in here. So anyway, if you go with the Mini 3 with the DJI RC controller, the basic drone and the controller is going to be $610 or so. If you get the Fly More package, which is going to add 2 more batteries, the little charging cradle, and also some propellers, it's going to be about $800. So that's going to be the price for the DJI Mini 3. Now, if you go with the Mini 3 Pro, which is what I have here, with basically the basic controller, so this controller here, that's going to be about $760. If you add the DJI RC with your Mini Pro 3, you're looking at about $910. Now, to add the Fly More kit to the DJI Mini 3 Pro, that's going to be about another $190, and that's going to add a couple more batteries, like I said, the charging cradle, more propellers, that kind of stuff. So you're looking basically, what, about $1,100 for the Fly More, basically, with the DJI RC controller. So that's going to be your price point on those. As far as the Air 2 or the Air 2S, as far as the Air 2, well, you can't buy it new anymore. Well, you can sometimes. Maybe you'll find one that hasn't been flown or whatever, but light flight time. I'd say used, you're going to be looking at about $500 for this drone with this kind of standard controller, basically. As far as with the Fly More kit used, you're going to be looking at about $700 for the drone, 3 batteries, and the controller. So that's going to be about your price point on the Air 2. If I had the Air 2S, anyway, like I said, it looks very similar, right? Just has these kind of eyes up here. As far as the basic drone with kind of this controller here, you're going to be looking at about $800. If you do the Fly More kit, which adds those extra batteries and the propellers, you're looking at about $1,040. If you wanted to add this controller, the RCN1, you can add that to the 2S. That's going to be about a $310 upgrade. So theoretically, you'd order the Air 2S with the Fly More kit, and then you'd add the RCN1 controller for another $310. So you're looking at about $1,350 for the RC controller and the Fly More kit and the drone and the Air 2S. Now we come to the Skydio. Now this one's going to be kind of the big dog in the room as far as pricing goes. So basically for the basic drone, and we're talking a basic drone with 1 battery, and as weird as it sounds, no controller, because you're going to control it with your cell phone. That's going to be $1,100. Now, the prices on these drones on the Skydio goes from $1,100, and then if you go, there's a package called the Cinematic Kit, which is the one I have. It gets really expensive. They go up to like $2,400 if you get the full Monty on them. However, the $2,400 is going to include the drone, obviously, 3 batteries, so you're going to get 3 batteries, a charging brick, which is pretty cool. You're also going to get the controller, and then you're also going to get the beacon. The controller by itself is about $180 if you were going to add it to the basic drone. The beacon, like I said, is about $220 to add that on. So that's going to be kind of the price point on all of these drones. So, like I said, they're not cheap, but you get what you pay for. So let's just take a look at one last thing. So that's going to be as far as the portability of these drones. All right, so now I just want to kind of talk about the portability of these drones, right? So here we go. This one here, like I said, just folds in here. This one folds up here. This one here folds down here. This one here folds up here. So this is basically the signature, I guess you could call it, of how small this drone is as far as when we're going to be traveling with it. It's pretty awesome, right? I mean, it's so small. It's smaller than its controller. But I mean, so that's just basically your package, just how small it is. And you can get all kinds of different bags, but this one is really neat just to put in a backpack and kind of carry around with you. Then we move up. So the bigger drones, So that was the minis. So then we move up to the Air 2 series. So obviously quite a bit bigger drone, right? So we're going to fold these up, fold those up. This one closes in here. This one closes in here. And there we go. So quite a bit bigger, right? So there's a little bit more room to pack this thing in. So let's take a look at it compared to the mini again real quick. So there we go as far as that comparison. So quite a difference. Then we come to the big boy in the room, which of course is the Skydio, and this one does not fold up. So the reason this doesn't fold up is because of that collision avoidance system. It has to be so accurate and so precise that they didn't want to risk any kind of misreadings from these flexible like legs or arms basically. So this whole frame is just rigid and it makes it just, like I said, it's unbelievable, the collision avoidance system on this thing. But that's what it's going to look like as far as you're transporting it. So it's, I mean, it takes up a bit of room. Then you add kind of your charge and all that kind of stuff. And there it is compared to this one as far as transport. And there it is compared to this one as far as transport. So this is the big drone in the room. So in closing, which one do I recommend that you get? Well, it depends on what you're using them for, right? My favorite drone out of all of these three drones is the Mini 3 Pro. This drone does pretty much everything pretty darn well. It's really a phenomenal little drone. And when you tie it in with this DJI RC controller, it's an awesome little package. This is the one I take with me when we go on cruises, on ships that'll let you take the drones, right? Some of them won't let you take them. Like they think you're going to fly on the drone, but whatever, that's a whole different story. You just want to use it when you get to port and go to these cool places. But anyway, this is the one I would take, right, is a Mini 3. And it's just the fun go-to drone to have around. If I want to get some more cinematic shots and just some nicer, in my opinion, kind of smoother flights, I'm going to be taking the Air series drones. And I'm probably going to sell this one. I'll probably just sell this one, get some money out of it, and get the Air 2S just to upgrade it. So that would be my one as far as like kind of doing nice photography work, that kind of stuff. And by far, hands down, if you're going to be doing action type stuff, like I said, you're on your dirt bike, you're in your car, you're taking your Jeep out, you're going hiking, climbing a mountain, whatever you're going to be doing as far as active tracking, things that you want to follow you, this is the drone to get, the Skydio 2 Plus. It is unbeatable currently, in my opinion, as far as active tracking and following you. It is an unbelievable drone when it comes to that kind of capability as far as active track. So this is the one to go for kind of those active action shots. So there you go, folks. That's pretty much the whole enchilada as far as some of the drones. I didn't want to go into all the flight stuff. You can find videos on that with pilots that are a lot better than me. I just want to go into some of the technical stuff and which drone I think you should get or which drone fits your needs. Hey, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button. If you can hit the like button as well, I really appreciate it. More stuff coming. I've got some car reviews, all that kind of stuff. And thank you so much for your time. Have fun and fly safely.